Neil rents whatever kind of home he can find.
The last job I had was cooking in a youth hostel, some cleaning work as well. And I was the only person in the hostel who could speak French, so I had to do a bit of that.
Do you eat every day?
Yes. I'm eating better now than I was at times when I was in Aberdeen, and those days, sometimes I really was short of food.
Well, I'm going to take people to the country and sometimes take them to the seaside, and I'll have a big loud speaker in the motor coach and tell them whereabouts we are and what we're going to do and what the name of the road is and all about that.
There's a lot more to do in the mountains than there would be in a suburb or in a city centre. What I've found here, in fact, is that you don't talk about things like the weather, because the weather is all around. Everybody knows it's been raining, so you don't talk about the weather. That makes good sense to me. I'm not the sort of person who can go into a pub, sit down with a drink, and listen to the jukebox and talk a lot of rubbish. A lot of people find that very relaxing. But if I'm going to talk to somebody, A, I have to be able to hear myself speaking, and B, I have to be talking about something that actually has a meaning. I'm not trying to denigrate the way that most people relax, but I can't do that. So I'm lost in a noisy pub. I'll sit in a quiet corner of a quiet pub, and then I'll want to talk about literature or something like that, which not everybody will want to.
How do people regard you here?
Well, I'm still known as an eccentric, as I have been since about the age of 16 or so.
Do the days seem long for you?
They can do.
Do you have any friends anywhere?
I have some good friends still in England.
I don't think I need to go to university because I'm not going to be a teacher.
I moved up to a comprehensive school. I found it much bigger, of course, and I found it hard to settle into at first.
I did make an application to Oxford, but I didn't get in, and well, I think that's in the past now, and I don't know whether I would have been any happier at Oxford. It always had been a dream to get into Oxford, I think because people had encouraged me and because I knew famous people having been to Oxford. That is still something that occasionally I think about and think, yes, I know I could have done well.
I've been playing since I started at the comprehensive school since the first year.
I don't think I was half as clever as I was told I was. I think, unfortunately, I grew up against a background of people of pretty average intelligence. I don't think I went to a school that was full of bright people. If this had been the case, I don't think I would have been so big-headed. I know I went to university expecting to be something of a genius and found that this wasn't the case at all. Which is a good thing for me. I mean, it's very good that I didn't come to that opinion. I don't think I was so much clever. I just think I was quite enthusiastic, particularly when it came to A-levels. I was enthusiastic about the subjects I was studying, and therefore, with the help of good teaching, I was able to get good results.
What were your results?
Well, I did well enough. I'm not going to boast.
No, but tell me the fact. How many O-levels and how many A-levels did you get?
Well, I got 10 O-levels, and then I got 4 A-levels.
And did you get good grades within them?
Yes, the grades were quite satisfactory. Well, I was only taking university seriously for a matter of a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. Maybe I went to the wrong university, or maybe university life didn't suit me. Either way, I felt a very great need to get out of the system. No formal education can prepare anybody for life. Just only life can prepare you for what comes. And sooner or later, you're going to have to cross certain barriers. And I don't think you ever cross those at school or at university. You come across the problem of mixing with other people, but the real problem, the real problem of becoming a success in the world is one you have to tackle yourself.
On the grass, we play international wrestling.
Yeah, that's all. It's summertime though.
Yeah, it's only when we can go on the grass.
Being in set one, it's very, very hard to keep up with the leaders. I never have a time to relax at all.
I don't know what sort of stumbling blocks should be put in a child's way to get him used to living in the outside world. Because I think maybe this is something that was wrong in my upbringing. I didn't have enough obstacles to get over. I still set myself high standards if I'm doing something I want to do. But that's important. That's not too bad a thing.
But you talked also about not having enough obstacles in your life. How do you feel about that now?
It's funny that, isn't it? I can't remember saying that, but now I do remember, and it seems that the whole situation is reversed.
In what way?
Well, now I'm a free. I've got a free hand, but I've got nothing to do with myself. So.
In the winter, if you lived in the country, well, it was just all wet and there wouldn't be anything for miles around. And you get soaked if you tried to go out, and there's no shelter anywhere except in your own house. But in the town, you can go out on wet, wintry days because you can always find somewhere to shelter because there's lots of places.
I don't think I've been typical of the environment in which I lived. I might still have been unemployed, but what my background has given me is a sense of just being part of a very impersonal society. The suburbs force this kind of feeling upon somebody. The most you can hope to achieve is to have the right to climb into a suburban train 5 or 10 times a week and just about stagger back for the weekend. The least is just unemployment. Great, thanks. I just needed just a nice woolly pair. Yeah. Great.
What other things about modern society turn you off?
The cheap satisfaction in so many things. The aimlessness. But I think the total lack of thought is at the bottom of it. Nobody seems to know where they or anybody else is going, and nobody seems to worry. You finish the week, you come home, you plug into the TV set for the weekend, and then you manage to get back to work on Monday. And it seems to me that this is just a slow path to total brainwashing. And if you have a brainwashed society, then you're heading towards doom. There's no question about that.
It would be pretty tough to convince most people that what you have here, the way you live, the way you look, is better than a suburban life.
Well, I don't want to convince anybody. I know it is. See, what I look like isn't necessarily what I feel like. I'm not claiming that I feel as though I'm in some sort of nirvana, but I'm claiming that if I was living in a bedsit in suburbia, I'd be so miserable, I'd feel like cutting my throat. And so there is a slight difference.
When I go home, I come in and Mummy gives me a cup of tea, and then I go out and play. And when it starts to get dark, I come in again and put on TV.
I don't think I was really taught any sort of policy of living at all by my parents. This is probably their biggest mistake. That I was just left to fend for myself in a world which they seemed completely oblivious of. And I found that even when I tried to discuss problems which were facing me in school, my parents didn't seem to be aware of the nature of the problem. We made up quite well after the bad times we went through when I was in my early 20s. There are still awkward patches, but I think suddenly, perhaps almost mutually, it dawned upon us that we were all making mistakes, and also that some of the things we did couldn't be helped. And I think now, perhaps the greatest thing we've achieved is we know when to say nothing, and we know when to do nothing, and we know when to be tolerant of each other, and that's a great thing. That's really tremendous. What I'd like most of all would be to be able to do something for my parents when they're older, to be there when the time is necessary.
Were they upset with what you said about them in the last programme?
I'm sure they were. But I don't wish I hadn't said it, because I said exactly what was going through my mind. I think I was very venomous, and I think had I been in an easier situation myself, and had I had less worries myself at the time, I would have been perhaps a little kinder. I had to take out my anger on somebody, and I think it came out of my parents. But perhaps unconsciously, a lot of what I said was what I did feel underneath. But I don't want the scar to remain.
When I get married, I don't want to have any children because they are always doing naughty things and making the whole house untidy.
I always told myself that I would never have children.
Why?
Because children inherit something from their parents. And even if my wife were the most high-spirited and ordinary and normal of people, the child would still stand a very fair chance of being not totally full of happiness because of what he or she will have inherited from me.
What goes through your mind when you look at saw those two films when you were 7, bright and perky and...
I find it hard to believe that I was ever like that, but there's the evidence. I wonder why I was like that. I wonder what it was inside me that made me like that. And I can see even at 14 that I was beginning to get more subdued and I was putting a lot more thought into what I was saying, to a ridiculous degree. And probably when I was 7, I don't know, I lived in a wonderful world where everything was sensation and I could be happy like this, I could be miserable the next minute. I know at 7 years old I was fascinated by everything around me. The colours of things and things that were funny, sounds that things made. I had, if you like, idiosyncratic views about things that other people hadn't even thought about.
When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. But if I can't be an astronaut, I think I'll be a coach driver.
This is probably linked up with the fact now that I want to travel. I mean, my thoughts haven't really changed differently, so I definitely would like to be a coach driver now.
I suppose yes, well, I would like to be somebody in a position of importance, and I've always thought this. But I don't think I'm the right sort of person to carry the responsibility for whatever it is. I always thought, well, I'd love to be, possibly even love to be in politics or something like this. But I suppose that I'd probably find that just as tedious as all the other jobs I've done. So. All the things I always thought I could do. I could give lectures on erudite subjects that I'd read all about, or I could work in the theatre, perhaps lighting or directing a show.
And is all that lost to you?
Does seem to be, yes. I don't see any way out. I've thought of everything I possibly could. It seemed to me for a long time that getting a reliable job and a nice place to live would be the solution. Well, I haven't succeeded. I can't see any immediate future at all. But here I am. I've still got clothes on my back, not particularly nice clothes, but I've still got them. I have a place to go to. I have some prospects of work. I'm still applying for jobs. I haven't given up. I think I'm lucky because I've met so many people. I've worked with people who have no future whatsoever, for whom life is finished completely at 50, and yet they still have to somehow keep going. And I don't want it to seem that I'm complaining too much. I feel, especially sometimes when I'm on my own, that I'm losing touch with the way other people live.
Do you worry about your sanity?
Other people sometimes worry about it.
Like who?
As I said, I sometimes can be found behaving in an erratic fashion. I sometimes get very frustrated, very angry, for no apparent reason, for a reason which won't be apparent to other people around me. It's happened from time to time.
Have you had treatment?
I've occasionally had to see doctors, yes.